Ruchem Abayim B'Shem Hashem. Shem Irgin Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Smith on Dine Tircha DeTzibura B'Shas Krias Hatorah, the perfect laining. I'd like to bring us a curse to Simcha Cohen, answering today's shir, the Nishmas Imoy, Rezel Bas, Habnosan Alevi, Shalom Yotzai Beis Shvat, Nishmas Tzura B'Tzura Chaim. To have the great discussion sponsoring a shir called Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rav Smith.
The subject of today's shir, Tircha DeTzibura, is always a very emotional question. Mitzad echad, the questions come up often, and people don't really have the klarkeit in what to do. The marshal, a common shaila, they took out the wrong Sefer Torah. Supposed to lane Parshas Noach, and so they took out the laining that was just used for Rosh Chodesh, which is the other side of the chumash. Should you miss that Sefer Torah? Should you take out a different Sefer Torah? And the truth is, we need a little of the background, a better understanding, the parameters of Tircha DeTzibura. Many years ago, it was tape 537, we gave a sort of an overview to the sugya of Tircha DeTzibura. And today we're going to focus on all the shilas of Tircha DeTzibura regarding laining, and hopefully we'll figure out what the best laining, the most perfect laining, is the laining that avoids Tircha DeTzibura. So regarding laining, there happen to be a few sources in Gemara for this concept of Tircha DeTzibura. In other words, there are many Gemaras that speak about Tircha DeTzibura, but not necessarily laining. But regarding laining, we have three Makairis. The Mishnah in Yuma, Daf Samachas Amud Beis, says on the Avodas Yom Kippurim, the Kohen Gadol laned, of course, Parshas Achrei Mois, then Parshas Emor about Yom Kippur, and then the Maftir, which is in Parshas Pinchas, he laned Baal Peh, didn't use a Torah. Frag the Gemara in Yuma, Daf Ayin, you lane Al Peh? Why did he lane Al Peh? He had a chumash a Torah in front of him, let him mish from Parshas Emor to get to Parshas Pinchas and lane the Maftir from the Torah. And for the Gemara, no. Ein goyel and Sefer Torah b'tzibur b'pnei kvoi datzibur. You can't mish a Sefer Torah in the middle of davening, in the middle of the avodah, because that would be a violation of Tircha DeTzibura. And Rashi explains, "Shiyu mitzapim v'doimim lekach." The tzibur are waiting and doing nothing. In other words, when a yid davens, he's not wasting his time. It's not Tircha DeTzibura. When a yid learns, of course, it's not Tircha DeTzibura. But when a yid is waiting for them to finish mishing, mitzapim v'doimim, that's Tircha DeTzibura. Now, how long does it take to mish from Parshas Emor to Parshas Pinchas? An experienced Gabbai could do it in 3 minutes, maybe less. But we don't do that because Tircha DeTzibura. So what's the other choice? You lane Al Peh? Don't we know Dvarim Shebiksav, Iyachar Hashoy, Lo'ayman Al Peh, you're not allowed to lane Al Peh, something that's part of Torah Shebiksav. So we'll soon see the more of a hezbah. But this is the extent of Tircha DeTzibura. You can't keep a tzibur waiting, mitzapim v'doimim, and doing nothing. There's another source, and it's interesting, although this particular halach is not negei l'maisa b'zman hazeh, but the Mechaber devotes an entire siman for this halacha. And this is a Gemara in Sot, Daf Lam Betes, which is based in Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Mem Ches Aleph. In the olden days, before the advent of safes, they used to keep the Sefer Torah in someone's house. They brought the Sefer Torah for laining, and they put down nice sheets on the Bima, and they laned. After davening, they took the Sefer Torah back to the private house. So logic dictates you take the Sefer Torah, and then you collect all the nice sheets on the Bima, and together you bring it to the private person's house. Zok Gemara, the Mechaber has a whole siman kuf mem ches. No, don't do that. Because after davening, the olam does not leave shul until the Sefer Torah goes. So why should the olam wait for you to collect all the sheets from the Bima? Better would be take the Sefer Torah and go. So the olam could go. And afterwards you could collect the sheets. And the Mechaber has a whole siman kuf mem ches. Don't take the sheets until the olam leaves the shul. What's the pshat? How long does it take to collect the sheets? It doesn't make a difference how long it is. But daimimim and mitzapim, they're waiting for you to collect the sheets. And the Mechaber devotes a whole siman to show what Tircha DeTzibura is really all about. And the third is an obvious source. The Mishnah in Megillah Chav Tesam at Beis speaks about when we have 2 or 3 Sefer Torah. So you take out 2 or 3 Sefer Torah. Frag the Ritva on that Gemara, why take out 3 Sefer Torah? 2 even. Take out 1 and mish it to the second laining and the third laining. Zok the Ritva, no. Mishing a Sefer Torah is Tircha DeTzibura. So we have a Mishnah in Yuma, a Gemara in Saita, and a Mishnah Megillah all about Tircha DeTzibura. I'll tell you one more which is in Rishonim, but it has a big impact on halacha. They asked the Rashba in the Tshuvas, Chelik Aleph Kuf Tes Vav, they're about to start laining, and the only kohen in the shul is still in the middle of davening. He's holding the middle of Pesukah DeTzibura, for example, or Berchas Krishma. Should you wait for him to finish to give him a kohen? And don't forget, giving a kohen in a first aliyah is a mitzvah deraisa v'kidashtoi. Zok the Rashba, you're going to wait for him to finish davening? What about Tircha DeTzibura? Look at the Gemara in Yuma, they're allowed to lay in baal peh, not to make Tircha DeTzibura. And he says, Kvoid HaTzibur is more important than Kvoid Kohen. Now the truth is the Kohen is not doing his job, because Kehanim's reasoning, he shouldn't be behind, he should be on time. But Lamaisa, they don't wait for the Kohen, because the Tzibur is waiting. So this is 3 Makaris in the Gemara and 1 in the Rishonim. Now the truth is there's a lot to say about Tircha DeTzibura. I wish I had more time. But the Avla is not how long it takes. Let's say it takes an extra minute. Okay? It's not just a minute. It's a minute times the amount of people in the Tzibur. If you have 20 people, it's 20 minutes. 100 people, it's 100 minutes. But time is very precious. Time is life. You know, imagine if Elionav would tell us that certain person, he looks very healthy, but in 1 minute he's going to die. That's the way it is. There's Basheret, he's going to die in 1 minute. Have a massive heart attack and he's gone a minute later. And someone goes and kills that person a minute before he dies. So Bayasha said it's Pashat Kipshutai, that's a Reitzeach. Why? You killed a perfectly healthy person. His life is only 1 minute remaining, so what? That shows what a minute of life is. Take away a minute of life is a Reitzeach. That's the concept of Tircha DeTzibura. It's recognizing the value of time. You know, someone told me he once saw in a highway a Goyish billboard. You shouldn't read these billboards; they usually preach. But it was a Goyish billboard put up by a guy, and it said the saying "Time is money" is a disgrace to time. Even a guy understands that time is so much more than money. Oh, so what is time? If it's not money, we'll be very firm. We'll say time is olam haba, but it's not true. What is time? It's not just money, it's not just olam haba. Time is life. And a person that's Tircha DeTzibura, he's not recognizing the value of life. Especially if it's a tzibur. So it's not a question how long it takes, it's a question that don't waste people's time. Not a yachid and certainly not a rabbin. But be that as it may, this is Tircha DeTzibura. The Olam doesn't mind spending an hour davening Shachris on Shabbos. It's very nice. Davening is wonderful. No Tircha DeTzibura. But if you have to wait till the Sefer Torah is mished, doimimim umitzapim, that's Tircha DeTzibura. The emphasis there are some poskim can say Tircha DeTzibura is a deraisa. Which pasuk? Probably it's v'aftarecha kamoicha. Some say tzar b'alechayim, deraisa, and kolshkem by an adam. And we'll soon see a pasuk occur in the pasuk. When they say v'tokim v'darta b'nei zaken, I'll soon explain. But no doubt about it, Tircha DeTzibura is a very serious concept. I once heard a story, and I called the Baal HaMaisa to tell me over exactly, and I'm telling you exactly the story. It goes back a long time ago. This person was the manager in a Period Manor. It used to be a very famous chasana hall in Flatbush. And Yakov Kamenetsky Masad the Kedushin, and about to start the Kedushin, and Yakov asked the chas, no, where's the Kedushin ring? and he starts checking his pocket. Oh, I left it in the yichud room. So Yakov says, "Hast a nickel? A nickel in those days was sheva pruta. You'll be mekadesh with a nickel." And the father almost had a heart attack using a nickel. The photographer had a heart attack. Can you imagine the chasana with a nickel? So the father said, I'll go get it. Yaakov says, no, don't. Tircha DeTzibura. We'll use a nickel. So the father said, bub, and he just ran off. So Yaakov said, we're going to make the chasana without the father. Tircha DeTzibura. So this manager told me he was there, and this was his nesayin of his life. He started talking to Rabbi Yakov and explaining why you have to wait. Yaakov said, we can't wait. But Baruch and the father ran very quickly, and he ran back with the ring, but he held that you don't keep an oilam waiting. You think about Tircha DeTzibura, by Chasen, there's hundreds of people waiting. I mean, this is life. This is depriving life. But be that as it may, today we're going to focus the halachas on laining, and I will try to apply this lamaisa. And we broke it up into 4 parts: the Krias Torah during the week, the halachas of the Oila, Shabbos and Yom Tov, and then the haftarah. I saw the Ginas V'Rodim, one of the Gdolei Svar, the Rav of Mitzrayim, in Aleph Mem Tes was asked to Shaila with a Wagoiza Tainus Sibur, and a lot of people didn't fast, but they wanted to lane with the brachas because it was officially Tainus Sibur. Maybe you're not allowed to lane because the Tzibur didn't take it entirely as a Kabbalah. So his response is that the truth is you're allowed to lane, it's not a problem. Really, we should lane every single day. But Tircha DeTzibura. But if you have a tzibur that's fasting, even if the whole tzibur doesn't fast, you're allowed to lane. You hear what he said? We should lane every day, but it's Tircha DeTzibura. Now, I wondered, the Gemara in Bava Kama said they were masakin, this stuff, pei beis, that Monday and Thursday based on a pasuk. There it's very pashut. Minimally, you need laning on Monday and Thursday. But the Ginas V'Rodim is saying that really you should lane every day. And only because it is not done is Tircha DeTzibura. The truth is that we see in the Mishnah, in Megillah Chaf Aleph, the reason why there's no haftarah on a Monday or Thursday is Tircha DeTzibura. So it's very much part of our halacha. We once heard a shayla, there were 2 yahrzeiten on the same Monday on a regular weekday. And you can imagine there was Lebedik, who gets the aliyah. Someone said he heard that if they're 2 chiyuvim, you're allowed to make hosfos during the week. Could you imagine make hosfos during the week? He said it's a farish in Shulchan Aruch. So I didn't remember to the Shulchan Aruch. So he terribly misquoted the Mechaba. Now listen to this. Bemis, who could say you make hosfos during the week? The Mishnah Megillah say you're not allowed to. But the chiddush is that there is a Mechaba in Shulchan Aruch that quotes the Mordechai and Megillah and Mamrutenberg, and that's the Ramah and Kuflam at Hey Aleph, that if you have 2 chasanim in shul on a Monday or Thursday, since for a chasan it's his Yom Tiv, you're allowed to make a hosfos, so you're allowed to make a hosfos Monday and Thursday if you have 2 chasanim. Not 2 chayuvim, 2 chasanim. In fact, the Ramah says, maybe who adin you have 2 balei bris, you can make a hosfos, because it's also a Yom Tiv of both. So that the Magen Avram says, no. Only by a chasen. So because the baal bris, he's a baal simcha. But it's not enough to be baal simcha. You have to be a Yom Tiv. And only a chasen is a Yom Tiv. Zok the Taz, the Levush says, ve'enoi hagen kain, even by a chasen, koshken a baal bris, and shaper avidi, the laining kain. Can you imagine if we make a hosfos during the week? Ain't the davar soif. Yartzeit, this, that. So Lamaisi, even by a chasen, we don't do it. Kosh came by 2 yardzeiten. I saw a dava nifla that, as we know, that the halacha, you'll see, if you want to learn the Mashal Hilchas Hagban Glila, you won't find it where it should be at the end of laining. Where do you find Hilchas Hagban Glila? In Kufla Medalid Beis, which is before laining, which is Hilchas B'Hurachum on a Monday and Thursday. Why? So we're very pashut, because the minig of Sfardim Ada Yoim, that the Hagba is made before laining. Very nice. Show the oilam what they'll be laining. But the minig Ashkenazim, we make Hagba after laining. Why? So the emes is, the real Hagba is based on a pasuk. The Ramban has a famous taich or agev ashla Yakov divya Hatorah hazois. Himself the Sefer you're supposed to make hagba. So the question is, when is a better time? Sfar to make it before laining. But for us, when the Sefer Torah is out anyhow, so you make it out after laining, you show after laining. But what's interesting is, okay, maybe for Ashkenazim, we make it after laining. Why not make it before laining also? What are you afraid to do it twice? So one of the G'dayli Rishonim seems to say, this is the Orchis Chayim L'nil in the Meisifim Beis V'hei Sivches, that to make it twice is Tircha DeTzibura. Because whenever you make Hagbod, the Elam has to stand up. So you have to make it once. And you hear what Tircha DeTzibura is, making the Elam stand. Now the truth is, we once discussed this, it's based on a Gemara, standing up for a Sefer Torah is a mitzvah deraisa. Because Adar Tipnei Zaken, there's a mitzvah deraisa standing for Talmud Chacham, Kol Shkein Torah Atzma. So what do you care if the Elam stands up twice? The teretz is, if it's not necessary, it's Tircha DeTzibura. I'll tell you a bigger chiddush. In Kedushin Lamed Gimel, the Gemara says, Minayin lezaken shelo yatriach, tamalay mezaken v'yireisa. Which means, if a tamachacham or a zaken walks into shul, I stand up, I have a mitzvah deraisa. No doubt about it. Zok Gemara, but a tamachacham himself, go in the back entrance so they don't have to stand up for you. In fact, the Gemara says, if you do that, you're Mayrich Yomim. Rabbi Konetsky said he was Mayrich Yomim because he was marked with this Gemara to try to avoid being the cause of people standing up. And you wonder, you get a Richas Yomim for depriving Yidden of standing up for a mitzvah deraisa? The teretz is, yes, a Yid stands up, he gets a mitzvah. But you don't have to be the one that's matriach the Yid to stand up. And based on a pasuk, a Talmud Chacham that avoids having people stand for him, he's Zoich Richas Yomim, and Zakin v'Yereisa, be careful, Zakin, Talmud Chacham. So I was thinking maybe that's the makar of Tircha DeTzibura. Zakin v'Yereisa, that there's a concept that Torah is talking to a Talmud Chacham, try to prevent Tircha DeTzibura. So you see a makar midaraisa of Tircha DeTzibura. There are different minhagim in Klal Yisrael, how to call up the Oila to the Torah. Now, Ashkenazim are used to our minig, that the Gabbai calls him Pliny ben Pliny. By Sfaradim, it's not the minig. The Sfaradim minig is that the Tamachachim, that the Gabbai goes over to the person, and he calls him, tells him, okay, you're next aliyah. What's the different minhagim taliyin? So one of the pshatim I saw is that really, it makes sense to call him up. It's quicker than going to the person's seat. But sometimes a person is so busy schmoozing, he doesn't hear his name, Oisik Baveir, Potem and mitzvah, he doesn't hear you calling him. So you have to call him again. No. Tircha DeTzibura. Better go to him. That's the minig of Ashkenazim. That's the Ramaz minig in Kuf Lamates Gimel. Better would be, the Sfardish minig to go over to him. But why the Ashkenazim call him up? Because very often it takes a long time to go to the person's seat. If the person hears you, the best eitzah would be, call him. So either minig is worried about unnecessary tircha DeTzibura. Rather, some have a minig that they give out cards before laining. That's the minig of the German kehilos. They give out cards before laining, who gets which aliyah. So that probably avoids all problems. But the yik is, part of our laining is the tircha DeTzibura focus. Ma'aseh Shahaya, there was one kohen in shul, and he was holding Milah Shmoin Esrei. And the shaila was, should you wait for him to finish to give him kohen? So I hope this sounds familiar. This is our Rashba. The Rashba says that you can't wait for a kohen because Tircha DeTzibura. The only question is, here he's not holding a Milah Berchas Krishma or Pesukah DeZimra. Here he's in the middle of Shmoin Esrei. Maybe he's almost finished. So the Machab in Kuf Lamed Hey Sifei quotes the Rashba and doesn't say any chiluk where he's holding. And I think the pshat is very pashut. Because even waiting a minute, we'll soon see even waiting less than a minute, is Tircha DeTzibura. It's not a time. It's waiting for someone, and the tzibur is daimim with mitzapim. So as long as he's not ready to get as an aliyah, there's no chiyuv to give to the kohen, and you call up Yisrael bim kohen kohen. Ma'aseh Shahaya, there was once a minyan that there was no baal korei except the baal korei, who came late, and he was holding middle of pesukah DeTzibura or bרכת krishma. Can he go up and lane? For him, it's a hefsek. So the Shai in Chelik Aleph Kuf Chav Ches, he says it's mutter to lane if you're the only baal korei, and pashit it's during pesukah DeTzibura, but even during bרכת krishma. And the svara is this is an issue of korei DeTzibura. And just like you're allowed to lane baal peh, the Mishnah Yuma, you're allowed to lane baal peh, and you overlook the issa of dvarim shebiksav, baal peh, you're allowed to overlook the issa of hefsik, and the only baal korei has to lane even during bרכת krishma. I saw the Maram Brisk in Chelik Gimel Chavav. He said the same is true if there's no person to blow shofar during El except for the person who's holding in the middle of davening, wherever it is. Let him stop his davening. No, it's not a hefsek anyhow, but he does a maisa and blowing. It's not a hefsek because he's needed. I recently I was in a shul and there was no baal korei, and a person volunteered. And pardon me, he makes terrible mistakes. Like every other word was a mistake. I've never seen so many mistakes in one baal korei. And in the middle of laning, the baal korei walked in. So the shaila was, could you ask the baal korei to take over? He didn't hear the bracha rishayna. He walked in the middle of the aliyah. So this I rather found the Har Tzvi and Siman Ayin Bey says doesn't make a chiluk. As long as the tzibur heard the brachas, that's enough. Now he doesn't speak about Tircha DeTzibura, but I think in our case there would be a tsar DeTzibura, that this fellow's laning was full of mistakes. So, and Baruch Hashem wasn't a question of embarrassing the baal korei because he was embarrassed enough, he just walked away. So the other person took over and there was no problem, even though he missed the brachas. I often wondered, Bichlal, a baal korei makes a mistake. If it's a mistake that's Ma'akev, you have to repeat it. Let's say it's a mistake that L'kula Alm is not Ma'akev. He says S instead of Ace, or Mitzrayim instead of Mitzrayim. Maybe you shouldn't correct him. Al Tircha DeTzibura, he has to go back. You're also embarrassing him. So the Mechab and Kuf Mem Beis Aleph, based on a Chumash Hadeshin, says the following. If he makes a serious mistake, machzirin oisai. But if it's a mistake that's not ma'akiv, ein machzirin oisai, ela goyarim boy. Sound like you yell at him. Now, if I were to ask you, which is worse, machzirin or goyarim? To us, goyarim is like, a person that's talking during laining, the machabas is goyarim boy. And here he says, a mistake, it's not ma'akiv, goyarim boy. But if you look at the makar of the Inyan and Chumash Hadeshin, and that's the way the Achreinim explain that machzirin means even if he went further, he has to lane over, start again, and go back to his mistake. That's embarrassing. He's holding it ready later, but he made a mistake, go back and repeat it. Goyarim boy does not mean yell at the top of your lungs. Goyarim means say S, not Ace, or Mitzrayim, not Mitzrayim. Zok the Makar Chayim, the Chavas Yoer, two esberim, why you correct him. It's not a ma'akiv. So one reason, Zok the Makar Chayim, so next time he'll do better. You can't have a baal korei that comes in irresponsibly and makes mistakes. You got to tell him, no, we want perfection. And a second hesbe, he says, is people will think, hey, my chumash is wrong. He said Ace and it says S. And they'll think that that's the right nekudas, and it's really wrong. But lamaisa, that's why it seems, even on a slight mistake, once he went weiter, then you can't correct him. But b'shas maisa, goyarim boy means a gentle reminder. Rabbi, that's not the right word. The Buchacha has a chiddush. He says goyarim means I told him afterwards that he made a mistake. I don't know how he learned the word goyarim boy, but he said after the laining, tell him, by the way, you made a few mistakes, this shouldn't happen again. But I think the Welt is very makbid on this. This is the best part of laining, to correct him on mistakes. That's part of goyarim boy. A very challenging question is the shaila about, you took out a wrong Sefer Torah. Again, they're holding Parshas Noach, and they took out a Sefer Torah from Rosh Chodesh, which is towards the end of the chumash, the Torah. So here we have a problem, what to do. To mish the Sefer Torah, you're not allowed to. Ain't goyim Sefer Torah b'rabim. But then again, to take the Sefer Torah, wrap it up, and put it back and take another one, besides Emavin ala mitzvahs, is also a problem of pagam of the Sefer Torah. People can say, oh, you see, the problem is Sefer Torah is possible. And what's pliadik, in the same Gemara, Yuma Daf Ayin, where the Gemara speaks about Tircha DeTzibura, the Gemara says also, but don't give a chashash of pagam Sefer Torah. Taking out a different Sefer Torah is the pagam on the other one. So the shayla is, what do we do now in this case? So this is something you'll see, even Gedolei HaPoskim, the Mashal the Yavitz in the Siddur, in Krias Hatorah, the end of Sif Aleph, Rav Moshe, in Chelik Beis, Lambatai, and they were big machriyim, both say it's hard to be machriyim. Because mitzarecha tircha DeTzibura, mitzad sheni, pagam Sefer Torah. Cover Tzibur versus cover Sefer Torah. So this could be probably half a share for itself, but Rav Moshe says that either minig is right, but he seems to be more noita to mish the Sefer Torah, but not to cause pagam Sefer Torah. Because obviously kvoid Sefer Torah is more important than kvoid tzibur. Rav Moshe does say that if the Rav paskind to put it back and take another one out, Tircha DeTzibura, so vice to chais, the tzibur is not moichel, and they want you to move quickly. Then taka put it back and be chais for kvoid tzibur. But what makes sense, Rabbi say, is you think about it, our case is maybe better than the original pagam in Masechta Yuma, because our case you took out a Sefer Torah and you didn't even start laining yet. So what do you mean pagam Sefer Torah? What's the pagam? You didn't see any psul. You didn't start laining yet. When is it shaykh pagam? Like in the case of Yuma, they lane from the first Sefer Torah, and now if you don't lane again from the Sefer Torah, people think, oh, he must have found the psul when he laned. In other words, you laned from it, you found the psul. Our case, you didn't lane yet. Why is there pagam? What's the pagam? What changed? And taka, many poskim say that our case has a maila, there's no pagam. But then again, people that talk and find chesroinus, doesn't have to make sense. Well, I know for a fact that I saw them putting it back. Did you see them finding a problem? But people are people, Nebuch, and they find chesroinus. So this is basically a choice of the Rav, either to put back the Sefer Torah and take a new one, or else to mish. But one thing I did see, that the Buchacha says, if we just took it out of the Aron HaKodesh and realized the mistake right away, quickly put it back and take out the right Sefer Torah. What's more pashit, almost all the poskim agree, almost, let's say it's a day of 2 lanings, Parshas HaChodesh, whatever it is, and they've opened up the Sefer Torah to lane the Parshas Shavua, and lo and behold, it's the maftir. So the poskim there's no problem of pagam. Close the Sefer Torah, take the right one, and you'll use the other one soon. No, where's the pagam? Pagam is only when you put it back and don't use it at all. That's what I saw most poskim say. I get the Mata Yehuda Yash, and Reish Pei Beis is chaysh even then, but that's probably a das yochid. The Buchacha suggests whenever you put back a Sefer Torah to make a short announcement. Rabbi say the Sefer Torah is not possible, it's fine, just it's the wrong Sefer Torah. This way you really avoid any concern of pagam. To whom it may concern, to the Gabayim, Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvahs, it's a big chesed if the Gabay could make sure he's by the Aron HaKodesh during the Psicha, tell the person which Sefer Torah to take out, or how to open the Aron HaKodesh, or how to open the Paroiches, left to right, right to left. The Gabay gets enough pizyonis that he could do his job right. He could be there, help the person take out the Sefer Torah, which Sefer Torah, and don't leave him to guess. I saw a fascinating Tircha Tibur Shailas Negea to Yeshivais and to Chasidisin, both the same. Imagine the Yoifi of the first Monday of a Zman in a yeshiva, or the first laining by one of the Rebbes in Eretz Yisrael. There's probably hundreds of people that have to say Goimel. Mir Yeshiva, I heard there's a few hundred people making Goimel beginning of this Zman. They all flew from America, from Europe, and by Chassidim they come to the Rebbe for Yom Tiv. So you have many people saying Goimel. It could take 20 minutes. So the shaila is it advisable that one person says goimel, and might see the multitude of people that have a chiv goimel? So the emes is, if Shmei Koina works for laining and everything, and works, for Kiddush, why not for goimel? And the Mechaber ratio test seems to assume, yes, it works. Rabbi Ege has a chiddush that if I have to make goimel because I flew overseas and someone was very sick, so one goimel doesn't work for both, the different chiyuvim, even though it's the same nusach. Okay, but here it's all goimel. But if you look at the Meiri in Brachas Nun Daled Amud Beis, the Meiri says that each person has to make his own goimel. And the Hergish is probably, a goimel is an expression of thanks. You can't listen to his goimel. You have your own feelings you have to express. So I saw the pesukim say, l'chatchila, the minig is make your own goimel. But if it's a question of Tircha DeTzibura, obviously you rely on Shemei Koina, the halach in the Shulchan Aruch. You don't have to be chayish for the Meiri. Or better yet, be machmir with Tircha DeTzibura. Oh, altogether? Okay, that's also a good idea. But the Tzitz Eliyaz and Chelik Yud Siman Yud brings from the Helgach Sam Seifa when his city was attacked by cannons and firing, and they all survived. So the Sam Seifa got up and made a goimel b'lashon rabim, and the entire Preshburg city responded, and they were yoytze with his goimel. So you see, the Sam Seifa did it, so you have nothing to worry about. Now, a sensitive point is the speed of the baal korei, or maybe the lack of speed. Let me explain. A baal korei that goes too fast and you can't keep up with him and swallows the words, so he's not doing his job. But the truth is, a baal korei that's too slow and sometimes gets the olam a little nervous might also be a problem. And the Shar Ephraim in Gimel, he says, don't lane too fast or don't lane too slow. Because too slow could be Tircha DeTzibura. That's in Gimel. In Gimel Aleph, he's a very dramatic description of someone that's too medactic, and people say, what's that? They can't recognize laining anymore. He makes it so unusual, like so funny, it's like not laining anymore. Bekitza, he says, Kala Mishana, whoever changes from the minig olam, Yodel Tachtoina. Too fast is no good, and too slow is no good. Now, of course, you have to know what too slow means. But basically, the way that Mat Ephraim writes in Shar Ephraim, it has to be Mene'ima Kedosha to attract people to listen to the laining, to be a pleasant Darchei Noyam experience. So the Derech HaMamutza is good. Baal korei goes a little quick, but he does it right. It's fine. The ik is it should be with the right zehirus, but not too fast or too slow. Now, after laining is completed during the week, DeTzibura says in Kuf Mem Zayin Chavei, there's no reason to wait to start Yiratzon until they finish Galila, because Yiratzon has nothing to do with Galila. So as soon as you could start moving davening, start Yiratzon. And I saw the Buchacha and Siv Zayin says that for the Nusach Ashkenaz that they say but Nusach Sfard they say Ashiv Al Tzion right after Yiratzon. You could also start Ashiv Al Tzion when they're making Galila. You don't have to wait till he finishes. We'll soon see Shabbos is different, but not during the week. As soon as they finish to pick up the Hagbet, sit down, start Yiratzon and Ashiv Al Tzion. As far as the actual brach of the Liyah, you see an incredible sensitivity to Tircha DeTzibura. Because when you learn the Gemara Megillah, it seems that you're not supposed to make a bracha when the Sefer Torah is open, because people might have this funny thought that the bracha is written in the Sefer Torah. So it would make more sense to close the Sefer Torah when you make the bracha. But the Mechaber says in Kuf Lamed Tes Dalid that the minig is to keep the Sefer Torah open during the first bracha. Why? Zok the Goy, and Mr. Baruch quotes it, because the close of Sefer Torah is Tircha DeTzibura. Now, how long does it take to close a Sefer Torah? And you ignore Chashash, what the Gemara speaks about, but that's Tircha DeTzibura. It takes mamish a rega kememre. But if it's not necessary, don't close the Sefer Torah. So there are two choices what to do. The Shulchan Aruch says that the best dates would be look to the side when you make the bracha. So you'll show you're not reading from the Sefer Torah, which many people do. There's some pesukim say it's inappropriate. you're making a bracha and you're looking to the side like your brag is with the Sefer Torah, chas v'shalom. So look straight ahead and close your eyes. And taka there are two minhagim. Either you look straight ahead, close your eyes, or look to the side. Okay, I should mention the Magen Avram quotes the Arizal, who taka close the Sefer Torah, and taka some Hasidim do that. But my point is not to be machriya and minig Yisrael, but to show that there's a Tircha DeTzibura in closing a Sefer Torah. How long does it take? That's not the issue. Now, the next question, if they call a person to an aliyah, and in that shul they put a talis on during the aliyah, so the Taz in Siman Yud Gimel, Sif Katan Gimel says that when they call you to an aliyah, don't check the talis, see if it's kosher or not. Just put it on and go, because that's Tircha DeTzibura. Now the Al Yerabba and in Ches Yud and the Bialoch and Siman Ches Sif Tes, the Masal Koidim says, wait a minute, Tircha DeTzibura is important, but especially the Amolagish talisais in shul, they were so old and worn out, it doesn't even have cheskes kashrus. How can you put on without checking? So the Bialoch says, if you take someone else's talis that has a cheskes kashrus, fine. But to grab a talis of the shul, you better check. I Tircha DeTzibura, but you can't be over. So look how the focus is regarding the talis. Now the emphasis today's talisais are probably a little better than they used to be, but if you have a suffix, if the talis is kosher, either don't take it, borrow a private talis, or check it at least to make sure that it has strings on all four corners. I'm always see a shul talis that has seen many, many better days, and it's mamish reklach. How to go up to the aliyah when they call you is interesting, because we know there's a big cloud, there's 7 places in Shas, called Pinashat the Paina, you always go the right direction. But when they're calling you up to an aliyah, there's another factor, and that is Tircha DeTzibura. If the left turn is quicker than the right, you should go left, because Tircha DeTzibura override Kol Pinais. Plus, there's another cheshbon. You're supposed to go to the Sefer Torah in the quickest way to show your excitement for the aliyah. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch and Kuf Amal of Zion says, when you go up to the aliyah, you go the shortest way. Now the Mechaber does recognize, let's say you're equidistant, left or right, then go right, because Kol Pinais. But if it's a question of a shorter way, even if you go left, but better do that to minimize in Tircha DeTzibura. The question I once saw was, let's say it's a Shabbos laining, and this shul they make langem b'shaberachs, and even if you creep up to the Sefer Torah, you'll get there earlier. So there's no Tircha DeTzibura, but there's still the other reason of going the quickest way. Maybe Taki should go the quickest way even then to show your excitement. But I thought probably the best date is turn right and go quickly to the right side. So you're showing your excitement, and you're also making the Kol Pinais correctly. But all agree, some people like to go, when they got the aliyah, they like to bask in the glory, they're so excited to get the aliyah, they walk slowly. That's wrong, the holidays. Now is not a time for your covet, it's kvoid Hatorah and kvoid Hatzibur. A question that was negeya, unfortunately, during COVID, and we had this recently in a bungalow colony, that they only had one Sefer Torah, and either before laining or during laining, they realized the Sefer Torah is puzzle. And they have no other Sefer Torah. Baruch Hashem today, shuls have plenty of Sefer Torah, but a question, there was only one Sefer Torah that was puzzle, and they didn't lane. Do you make it up next week? Or do we say, next week to lane double? Tircha DeTzibura, especially if Kisisa you missed. So Kisisa Yakov Pekudei, wow, that's a big laning. So the Arzarua, one of the Rishonim, Hilchashab Esim Menvav, writes for Dava Pashut, if you missed laning last week, you must make it up this week. I Tircha DeTzibura. So what do you mean? But you have a chiyuv, you have to make it up. He says, no one says V'yakal Pikudei together is Tircha DeTzibura, because that's the chiyuv. No, so if you have to make it up, that's the chiyuv. And the Ramah and Kuflam and Hey Beis paskins like this. Now there's a shayla if you make up every week you missed, or only the last week. So that's a big tumult, it was negated to COVID. But if a shul missed one laning, you have to make it up. That's not Tircha DeTzibura, that's doing your chiyuv. The beautiful shayla I saw was, let's say, somehow they got a Sefer Torah by Mincha. Shabbos Mincha. So Zok the Night Yehud and Dagam Revava and Mr. Bura Sif Cotton Hay, passing like this. Great. So laying the entire Parashas Kisisa by Mincha. Because it's better this Shabbos than next Shabbos. But the pliya is that the Chidah in 3 Tshuvas, twice in Chaim Shol and once in Toivayin, he says you can't lay by Mincha a whole 7 aliyos. The Mishnah says that Beis and Hay and Shabbos Mincha ain't Meisifin. Now it's a pliya because why Shabbos Mincha ain't Meisifin? There's no bittul malacha. So Zokti, the Pri Megadim says it's Altzmoy plug, and the Aruch HaShulchan says it's Lamaisa. They already lain by Shachris, so you can lay Mincha more. And some say you have to go have Shalosh Shudas. But the truth is that Shabbos Mincha is not a bad option. But the Chidah says, Ein Moisifin. Then he writes in Toivayin Gimel, I saw the Yehuda writes, you should lay my Mincha, but we don't paskin like that. The Ma'aseh Mr. Bura does paskin like that. And if it's shaykh, again, if it's not too late, if you're not going to miss Shalosh Shudas, it would be shaykh to lay 7 aliyos in what you missed and go straight into and lay a little bit for Mincha as well. But the pliya is the sensitivity that tzaddikim had for Tircha DeTzibura. The Chidah said, Chazal said, don't add to Mincha, don't add to Mincha. But the Idach Gisa, a chiyav is a chiyav, you can't abolish a chiyav. Question, a shul only has 1 Sefer Torah, and this week is Parashas Shkolim. What do? So, Zok the Rashba, Beis Yosef and Kuf Mem Dalet quotes him. You know what you do? Like the Mishnah says, you're laying Parashas Shkolim al peh, but you can't mish b'makom tzibur. As I state in the Rashba. However, the Mordechai in Gittin Tov Samach Gimel, regarding a different shayla, his lashon is ma'asim b'chol yoin. That if a tzibur only has 1 Sefer Torah, what do? You're laying the chiyuv and then you mish to the maftir. Tircha DeTzibura. Teretz is very pashut. Tircha DeTzibura is if you could avoid it, like in the base mix, they had an option of laining al peh. But today we have to have a maftir. And we can't lain al peh. So what do you do when you have a chiyuv? You do the chiyuv. So mish. So I don't have to wait. But he doesn't say the hezbah. But if you look at the Ritva and Yuma, it's an extremely important Ritva Pashut Pshat in the Kusugya. In the Beis Hamikdash they lay first Achrei Mois and then Emor. Frek the Yishalmi, how do they go from Achrei Mois to Emor? You don't go from Emor to Pinchas al Tircha DeTzibura because you don't mish b'rabim. How do they go from Achrei to Emor? So Zok the Ritva, you know why? Because if you have to do it, you have to do it, and you have to mish. What can you do? But Zok the Ritva, Pinchas was just an extra credit. They already had the maftir in Parashas Emor. Extra credit, you'll lay in al peh. Don't be matriach the tzibur. So Zok the Ritva, a beautiful Ritva, Oy Bazoy, if the tzibur only has 1 Sefer Torah and they have to lay in the maftir, chiyav is chiyav. So you're going to have to mish and the tzibur will have to wait. So we see from an Urzarua regarding missing the whole laining and a Ritva regarding if you only have 1 Sefer Torah, that Tircha DeTzibura is not an easy pass to pat yourself from chiyuvim. You got to do what you have to do. If it's an extra credit or waiting for a kohen to finish Manesra, if it's avoidable, then don't be matriach DeTzibura. And that's why Lamaisa, it's interesting, the Mechaba has 1 sif, Kuf Mem Dalet Gimel, he says, Ein goyelim Sefer Torah b'tzibur. That's Tircha DeTzibura. But if you only have 1 Sefer Torah, then you have to be goyel. So it's 2 halves of the story. Tircha DeTzibura is Kodesh HaKadoshim. But a Chiyav of Chazal is also Kodesh HaKadoshim. And if need be, you have to mish. Comes again the Magen Avram, Sif Cotton Zion, on this Mechaba, and he asks on his own, how could you tell me that the tzibah has to mish to get to the maftir? Mesechta Yuma ein goyelim. So obviously he didn't see the Ritva. And Magen Avram says an Eigen Chiddush. Really a tzibah could be moichel on the covet. So if a tzibah has to lay maftir, what should they do? So what do they want you to do? Mish. But in the Beis Hamikdash with Gans Klal Yisrael, there's no mechila for ganz Klal Yisrael. So therefore you have to give up the mishing and lein al peh. Very nice. We see mechila helps, and the truth is, because a Rav shemachal al kvoide and Av shemachal al kvoide is a Tzibur shemachal al kvoide. But the Yisoid HaDover is this distinction: when you have a chiyuv, you can't hide behind Tircha DeTzibura. I'd like to share with you Hatorah Lamaisa, because I think it's important to mention. A few months ago I was away for Shabbos by a simcha, and during laining it was all of a sudden very quiet, and I was afraid to look up because I'm not a Rav there, but I realized that there's probably a problem with the Sefer Torah. It took quite a while, and I was looking at my chumash, and the guy with me knew, what should we do now? Now, Baruch Hashem, they knew what to do most of the way. The Sefer Torah was Vadei Pasel, was missing a word. They took out another one, but they wanted to know if they should make 7 aliyos in the new Sefer Torah. In other words, let's say they realized make by Revi'i. They laid the first 4 aliyos. So you take out put the Sefer Torah back, take out another one, and they start laning till the end. But do you make hosafos to have shiva kruim? So I asked them, do you ever make hosafos in the shul? Because never. But it's a kpeda, no hosafos. I said, then just finish laining and continue from Revi and give the rest of the aliyos in the Sefer Torah. Now it was a chiddush to some, because the DeTzibura and Reish Pei Bei Sif Cotton Dalid has this very shaila, and he says, in the DeTzibura in Tov, Kuf Mem Zayin has this very shaila, and he says that if possible, you should lain 7 aliyos in the Torah, in the new Torah from the rest of the Kriya. Now the truth is, it's something that's really hard to understand, and I'll explain you why. Because the DeTzibura Sif Katan Yud Gimel says, Im efshel likroi shiva kruyim, do that. Now to me it was a chiddush. DeTzibura says, why? Vadei roi v'nochan to do that. Why? Because really the first Sefer Torah was puzzle. So you don't have shiva kruyim in a kosher Sefer Torah. So therefore, if you could make a soft, the second one you'll have 7 aliyos. You think about it, it's a pli atzuma, because you lay till Revi'i in a Pasal Sefer Torah. But that the Machabah says in Kuf Mem Beis, you don't lay over. Why not? Because if Tircha DeTzibura, you rely on the sheet that a Sefer Torah that's Pasal is good for laining. So regarding a Pasal or laining, you're chayish Tircha DeTzibura, and you don't lay over. But regarding 7 kruim, you make kaisafis, and Mr. Burr quotes achrayim. So who are achrayim typically? Magen Avram, Taz, Pimagodim, Chayodam. But it's nowhere to be found. To what I believe the Mr. Burr's Makar is a derech achayim in Nimsa Tois B'Sefer Torah. It's Pei Aleph, Ois Aleph. The exact lashon Vadei roi v'nochan to make shiva kruyim. Why? Lahoitzi nafshi miplukta. Because kfar nagu lahoisif harbe. You anyhow make a suffix, so make a suffix. And the Kitzah in Chav Aleph, Chav Daled Zayin quotes this. So now it was even a bigger mystery to me, because the DeTzibura is quoting Derech HaChayim that says because you make a suffix anyhow. When the DeTzibura in Kuf Mem Beis Yud Zayin quotes this Derech HaChayim, he leaves out the words kfar nagu to make a suffix anyhow. But it definitely makes sense to say that in a case that you never make kaisafis and you're chayish Tircha DeTzibura, like many shuls never make kaisafis, even on Shabbos, so why here not chayish for kaisafis as Tircha DeTzibura? But the emes is even worse than that, because the Magen Avram in Reish Pei Beis, where the Machabah says on Shabbos you're allowed to make kaisafis, like the Gemara, like the Mishnah says. The Magen Avram quotes the Tashbitz of Chelik Beis in the end of Siman Ayin that you're only allowed to make kaisafos in the times of Chazal, that you only had 1 bracha lefaneh, 1 bracha lachreah, so you can make as many kaisafos as you want. There's no chashash of bracha she'ein tzricha. But in our time that every oila makes a bracha lefaneh lachreah, zok the Tashbitz, one of the Rishonim, oisafa is a shaila of bracha levatala. You hear? You can't make kaisafos. It's only when they made 1 bracha from there, 1 lachreah, and nothing in between. So now it's even more mysterious. So you talk about a chashash, bracha she'ein tzricha. So it's a chiddush to me. The DeTzibura quotes achroinim, and it's only a derech hachayim, and he leaves out a very key part of it, that kvar nahagu to make hosafos. So I still think DeTzibura holds to make hosafos in every case, but it makes sense, like the achra that we said, if you never make hosafos, in that case, don't be choishev tircha DeTzibura, and maybe a bracha she'eina tzricha, and finish the laining in this Sefer Torah. And Baruch Hashem, someone showed me a Sefer, has a lot of inyanim of Tircha DeTzibura. It's called DeTzibura. He quotes from a Talmud and the later Av Bezin of Preshburg, Ramay Shalich Rosenbaum, the Av Bezin of Preshburg, that quotes this derech hachayim, and he asks, but if you never make hosafos, why not be choish with Tircha DeTzibura and not make hosafos and lane and finish laning? And he says the loike derech hachayim. So at least our psak we found in the Moshe Rosenbaum, that the Av Bezin in Preshburg. But again, the svara is that if you never make hosafos, that's Tircha DeTzibura. Now the truth is, the minig in many shuls is to make hosafos, but it has to be with the shear. I mean, in our shul we don't make hosafos. I'm not worried. But I'm all you go to shuls and they make hosafos, and one after the other. I was once in a shul, and there was mamash 6 pesukim left till the end, and the gabbai called up Yamoid Achrein. But the baal korei, after 3 pesukim, stopped, and there was the loudest gasp, oi! The whole tzibur together in chorus, oi! And that expressed Tircha DeTzibura. So people say, yeah, but I'm giving a big kiddush, the oil could wait. But that's bigger Tircha DeTzibura, because then it becomes Tzar Balechayim. They smell the kiddush in the background, anochan aliyah, anochan aliyah. So a person has to have seichel, a little bit, Tzar Balechayim is very dangerous, especially along with Sheberech. So one person told me, yeah, but I want to get everybody in. But the emphasis when you make a long with Sheberech, you usually leave out someone. I have the best way of getting everybody in. It's called Kol HaKol HaKodesh Azeh. That includes everybody, and no one's insulted, no one's left out. The davar you have to give the same, but you could just abbreviate it by saying Kol HaKol HaKodesh Azeh. The Divrei Malkiel in Chela Gimel Siman Dalet has a shaila niflo. We couldn't even relate to this. When the Sefer Torah is found to be possible, and there's no Sefer Torah in the shul, it's someplace else, but you could carry it. There's an Erev in the city. Maybe there's no chiyuv to get a Sefer Torah now, because Tircha DeTzibura. Maybe you're laying from a chumash. He says, if the Sefer Torah is there in the Oren, take out another one. But his sensitivity was to Tircha DeTzibura. Now he does add, if the Olam wants to get a Sefer Torah, and Mechila helps. But again, a little bit to hear what Tircha DeTzibura really is. Another mashal which needs hezbah, but when the minig Yisrael, and that's the Ramah quotes in the end of Kuf Mem Zayin, a day when there's 2 or 3 Sefer Torah, you take them all out together. Frag the Magen Avram, Zivkat Yud Aleph, the Yishalmi said beferish, you never take out more than 1 Sefer Torah at a time. You ever think about it? We take out 3 Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torahs wait by the Bima. Why is the Sefer Torah waiting for us? We should take out 1, put it back, take out another one. You go to a fancy doctor, he says, 3 patients in the same minute. You wait for me. Right? I'm not going to wait for you. But the Sefer Torah should wait for us. Why do we ignore Yerushalmi? So Zok Teshar Etzion, right? Sekalacha Yad is Got Lamed. Tircha DeTzibura. Imagine 3 psichas and 3 Shema Yisraels. A Chazan would love that. 3 Shema Yisraels. But it's Tircha DeTzibura. So of course it needs a hezbah. So what do we Shalmi hold? But it's Rabbi say it's a pliya. We take out 3 Sefer Torahs in one time, the like Yerushalmi, only because of Tircha DeTzibura. How like Dvoramu? Now, a question you have 8 weeks to figure out. Whenever we have 2 or 3 Sefer Torah, taking out 2 Sefer Torah avoids Tircha DeTzibura. Typically, Parshas Shkolim either comes out in Parshas Truma or Tetzava, or when a leap year like this year, it comes out Vayakel. But you make the cheshbon, mishing from Tetzava to Parshas Shkolim is not a mish at all. It's right there. From the end of Truma to Kisisa is mamash a few seconds. Even from Vayakel backwards to Kisisa is much shorter than taking out 2 Sefer Torah and 2 Baal Psicha and 2 Ad Begalilis. And that's why Gidol Yisrael, amongst them, Nasan Adla, Shmuel Salanta, and them it's Kamat Mefurish in the Shulchan Aruch that when Parshas Shkolim, you only take out one Sefer Torah. Why do we think about taking out two or three? Because when Rosh Chodesh comes on Shabbos, then you have to lay Rosh Chodesh in the middle. Oh, so then you might as well have a special Parshas Shkolim Sefer Torah. But it's a plea why the minhag is take out two Sefer Torah on a Shabbos Shkolim Shechal, not on Rosh Chodesh. It's sure to take out one. So the Emes says, I think the Pashat, the Cheshbon is, you make it a Shabbos, there are two Sefer Torah, it gives it a Chashivas, and some people have two kugels on two Sefer Torah. If I can say the kugels, but maybe it highlights the Chashivas of the actual, the Parshas Shkolim. The last group of questions, which is really interesting, and you see what the Tircha is all about, in Saitel on Testament Beis, the Gemara says you don't start the haftarah until you finish the Galila. Why? So, Pashut Gemara's Mash, Rashi explains this, because the one that's doing Galila is going to miss the haftarah. So, you have to give him, the opportunity. So, first finish Galila, and then you start the haftarah. Now, the truth is, it's a pliya. For one yachid, you keep the whole tzibah waiting. And the embassy, I saw the Torah's Kinoyas says that the other Rishonim are in different shot because it's takashver. How do you keep a tzibah waiting just because of one yachid? Let him do Galila and concentrate on the laining. So the Shibali Alekad and Sim Pei and the Meiri says a similar shot. We are very much concerned not to equate Torah to Navi, right? We have to show they're very different. So if you're going to be busy with the maftir, before you finish the Torah, that's a bezayin HaTorah. And the Beersheva in Takasaitel Amates spells it out. It's a bezayin HaTorah to start the haftarah when you're still busy with the Torah. Not als Tircha, not als the goyel's concern. The goyin says, "Ein oisem mitzvah chavilas." But at the end of the day, this is the minhag in Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Mem Zayin, that you don't start the haftarah until you finish the Hag B'Galila. Now it's interesting that the DeTzibura, and based on a Lavush, and Kavachayim says this as well, don't even start the brachis until they finish the Galila. Now the truth is, why you have to wait? What's wrong if you start the brachis when he's making Galila? He's not being yoytz to the brachis, but the teretz has to be that the main problem is you're starting haftarah and you're leaving the Torah. It's a bezayin HaTorah. And that's why you got to be careful to realize that haftarah is not as chashiv as Torah. Torah is Torah. Finish with the Torah and then you go on to the maftir. We once had a shaila, now we have a klaf, and the klaf is also used by an earlier minyan. And once they were delayed, and we had to wait for the klaf. The question is, can you have the tzibur waiting for the klaf, or no, take a chumash. You're allowed to yaitz for the chumash. So this Rabbi Yashiv says, and a yidin that don't use a klaf, you have what yeshem aliyos lisma. But if your minhag is to lane from a klaf, then you have to lane from a klaf, and you can wait up to 15 minutes to get a klaf, because that's really your minhag. And one last shayla I would love to hear from the oilam. We have many shuls have all minyanim in different times. By our minyan of Chalamoid, we have a minyan in the basement from Lichet Film. That's the whole story. But Bekitza, we take the Sefer Torah from the big shul, and we have to bring it back right away, so the next minyan could use it. And every year, 8 times we have Chalamoid minyan, we have the same shayla, because we daven svar like the shul daven svar, and the one that does psicha has to bring the Sefer Torah back to the main shul upstairs. But the problem is that we have to wait for him to start Kaddish and Musaf. Chalamoid is Kaddish and Musaf. So it always comes to the question, should we wait for him? After all, he's doing psicha for us. Or maybe tell an item to wait for one yachid, maybe that's wrong. So this is the question we always had. So when you learn the sugi, say, I have a fair shiraya. Saitel on Testament days. Because the way Rashi learns that the whole tzibah has to wait because one goyel shouldn't miss the haftarah. One yachid, if he's working for us, you have to satisfy him. But now you see it's not a perfect raya. Because like most Rishonim, what's the reason to wait for the goyel? Not out the yachid, out cover HaTorah. So v'tzarachian, a guten Tag to you all.
Shem Irgin Shir Torah like Rabbi Yashikoyach or Smith for today's shir. Like Rabbi Yashikoyach or Simcha Cohen for sponsoring today's shir. Levinish Mas Imoy, Basil Bash Mosman Levi, La Shalom Yosef Shvat. Rabbi said that was the exclusive sponsoring a shir from Rav Smith or a shir the other days of the week. One of the Irgin Shir Torah's Shavavim Shirim, which are in full swing now worldwide. Great expenses are involved. You have the schus of Mishtatef and the schus of the Taharas Yisrael. Call Irgin Shir Torah 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com or come over to one of the Askonim. After Smith, Pastor Hashem, Smith will say a seekum of today's shir. Chananya ben Akashim, Maros HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'zakes, Sis Yisrael, Afik, V'chibelim Torah, Mitzvah, Shenem Al Enei Chofes, and Matzidko, Yagdol, Torah V'yader.
Stay.